Carry a criminal deceasable portion.
Seeing at 6 p.m., I'd like to call the June 21st, 2023 regular meeting of the Kenai City Council to order. I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening, taking time out of their day to join us, and ask that if you're able to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Sonart,
Here.
Councilmember Naxted,
Here.
Councilmember Doffett is absent. Vice Mayor Baisden,
Here.
Councilmember Askin,
Here.
Mayor Gabriel,
Here.
Councilmember Winger.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next, before we get to approval of agenda and approval of agenda and consent agenda, council, I'd like to call your attention to a lay down you should have in front of you with requested additions to the packet. Action, add to item E4, resolution number 2023-44 amendment memo requested by Councilmember Naxted. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Mayor. I move for approval of the agenda and consent agenda with the noted add item and request unanimous consent.
Second.
Is there any amendment to the consent agenda or consent agenda this time from the body? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to please read the consent agenda into the record.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Approval of the regular meeting minutes of June 7th, 2023, brought to you by the city clerk. New business, action approval, bills to be ratified, brought to you by the administration. Action approval, FY 2023 purchase orders and purchase order amendments requiring council approval in accordance with KMC 715-020, brought to you by the administration. Action approval, FY 2024 purchase orders and purchase order amendments requiring council approval in accordance with KMC 715-020, brought to you by the administration. Action approval, third amendment to the agreement for janitorial services with Reborn Again Janitorial Services, brought to you by the administration. Action approval, assignment and assumption of lease agreement of Lot 1A FBO Subdivision, South Addition, and Lot 2A1 FBO Subdivision, South Addition, number 2 to Schillings Rentals LLC, brought to you by the administration. Action approval, non-objection to the renewal of a recreational site liquor license for Peninsula Oilers Baseball Club, Inc., doing business as Peninsula Oilers, license number 846, brought to you by the city clerk. Action approval, non-objection to the renewal of a beverage dispensary liquor license for George Pitts Leonis, doing business as Pizza Paradisos, license number 3032, brought to you by the city clerk. Action approval, non-objection to the renewal of a package store liquor license for Cars Gotzine Food Company, doing business as Oak and Keg number 1808, license number 3218, brought to you by the city clerk. Introduction of ordinance number 3360-2023, accepting and appropriating a grant received through Maddie's Fund to the Kenai Animal Shelter for the care of animals, brought to you by the administration. Public hearing on July 5th, 2023. Introduction of ordinance number 3361-2023, accepting and appropriating fiscal year 2023 funds from the 2022 Community Assistance Program passed through the State of Alaska Department of Commerce, Community and Economic Development for National Floodplain Insurance Program training, brought to you by the administration. Public hearing July 5th, 2023. Introduction of ordinance number 3362-2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the Airport Special Revenue and Airport Improvement Capital Project Fund to provide supplemental funding for the Kenai Municipal Airport Sand Storage Facility Project, and authorizing a contract amendment for professional services, brought to you by the administration. Public hearing on July 5th, 2023, and introduction of ordinance number 3363-2023, amending Kenai Municipal Code, Section 1420-330, Standards for Commercial Marijuana Establishments, and 1422-010, Land Use Table, to establish a minimum standard for public notification for commercial marijuana establishments and prohibit limited marijuana cultivation facilities and residential zoning districts. Brought to you by the administration. Public hearing on July 5th, 2023. And that is your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This evening, we have no scheduled administrative reports or scheduled public comment. That brings us to item D, unscheduled public comment. Is there anybody from the general, oh, I'm sorry, jeez. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to the consent agenda, which was, anything on the consent agenda, which was just read in the record by the clerk? Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Seeing none, unanimous consent was requested for agenda and consent agenda approval. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the agenda and consent agenda is approved. That brings us to item D, unscheduled public comment. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to address the council at this time on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda? Ms. Springer.
Hi, Samantha Springer with the Kenai Chamber of Commerce. So, can I just move this? Okay. I just wanted to remind everybody that our annual fundraiser is going to be this Saturday at the Kenai Chamber. We got part of the tent set up today, more tents coming tomorrow, and it should be a really fun event. Just from Alaska businesses, we received over $20,000 in donations for the live and silent auctions. So it should be a pretty spectacular event. We are about halfway full right now. So I'm hoping that we get a bigger turnout, but you never know with Alaska in summer. So, but I did want to remind everybody that. And then 4th of July is going to be right around the corner. Big event, obviously. And the parade entries have been coming in, but we are still asking people to pre-register those, so we don't have to do a lot at the event. So yeah, hope to see you guys there on Saturday, just saying.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Ms. Springer? Councilmember Winger.
I just want to say thank you for coming to our meetings and giving a report to us. You've been very faithful coming to every meeting. It's appreciated. And just a little question on 4th of July. How many have you had register?
I actually couldn't tell you that number right now because we've been so focused on the fundraiser, and having them back to back was probably not the best idea on my part, but here we are. So that will be, I'll be able to tell you that in like a week.
I look forward to your next report. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Nexon.
Still pretty early in the season, but do you have an idea how many visitors are coming through and how that compares with previous years?
It has actually been pretty crazy at the chamber. We are averaging about 130 visitors a day. And that's what they're literally doing hand counts. So that's our best estimate at this point. We had to pin the doors open because the dinging was driving everybody absolutely insane in the office. But it has actually been a very consistent and crazy early summer for us at the chamber. So it's been great. And people are definitely spending money and exploring the museum, and we're just really excited to continue that because, like, I don't know if you guys know, but we'll be starting to do virtual tours. So we're going to have a virtual tour of the museum. We're going to do a walking tour of Old Town so that that's something that anyone can experience with more information about each thing online, as well as an interactive gift shop as well, so that we'll be able to send gifts out from the Kenai Chamber and Visitor Center as well.
Councilmember Winger.
I think that's awesome. I actually asked during the pandemic if we had some sort of virtual tour for our parks department with the chamber, because it really is what a lot of places are doing. It attracts people to want to come to the area. So just hearing you starting that really makes me happy that that's finally 2 years later coming to fruition, and getting to mail out your gift shop stuff. I mean, there is a big drive for local Alaskan stuff. Maybe somebody came through and got something, drove home, and they get to put in an order. So great job. Thank you.
I think you guys will be really excited to see what comes out of the chamber in the next year. Just the events alone that we're trying to plan for the public, and that's why we do these events, is that we want to have more things that are for the community for free. So that's what I will continue to strive for. So,
Councilmember Nexon.
Just because Marion's sitting right behind you, you didn't include the art center, but I'm sure that you meant to, right?
Yeah.
As far as the tours. Okay.
absolutely.
We're online as it is, and have been doing gifts for a long time that way.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the general public that'd like to speak to the council at this time on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda? Please come forward and give your name and just whether you're a resident of Kenai or not.
My name is Brian Olds. I'm a potter. I'm here with my wife Shannon. Yes, I'm a resident of Kenai, except I think I'm on just south of where the cutoff is, but yes, I'm still a resident. I'm here on behalf of the Kenai Potters Guild. We have our upcoming 50-year Cheers to 50 Years fundraiser and our Clay on Display show. We have a Clay on Display show every year. This one, though, has a title called Cheers to 50 Years. We are, of course, located in the same building with the Art Center. And Marion asked me to come over here today and talk about our upcoming show. We are actually not only being sponsored by the Kenai Art Center, but also Kenai River Brewing Company is going to have beer there for us on tap with one of their employees, and it's going to be a fundraiser for us with beer tokens. We have, I think, approximately 40 Potter members in our guild, and probably 12 or 15 of them are fairly active members who should have some pottery in this show. I'm not sure if there's anything else is there anything else you want me to address on that, you think?
Well, a little bit of the history of the guild.
Well,
Think.
history of the guild, well, I don't know if I have I've been here probably 8 years. We've seen a little bit of change in the guild. I think Laura Feo was like a 30-year member, somewhere around there, and she's probably your historian. We're going to be on the radio if you want to listen to KDLL on I forgot to tell you the show. The show is actually going to be on July 7th. That's the opening from 5 to 7 p.m., obviously over in the Kenai Art Center. And then we're going to be on the radio. I think it's going to be on the 5th is when, on KDLL.
Music?
Is there music?
Music?
I'll be singing. No, there's no music. So. No, there won't be music. No singing, no playing, so.
But we hope you come.
But anyway, yes, you're welcome to come. You have any questions at all for me?
Well, you circled back and answered the question I had. It was what day it
Date,
was, so I
yeah,
appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
Councilman Winger.
Thank you for coming. You said you'll be on the radio, KDLL radio, July 5th. Do you know what time?
I don't yet. I'm sure it's going to air multiple times during the day, but there's 4 of us who were, I guess we semi-volunteered to do this, and so we're going to probably be recorded on the 2nd, and then what I was told by Alex, who's the executive director at the Art Center, that most likely I think it'll begin airing on the 5th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Olds. Appreciate
thanks.
it. Ms. Nelson.
It's on. I'll just add a little bit of history since I'm older than Brian and was present at the beginning of this. Some of you, maybe nobody remembers school superintendent Hayward, if I remember correctly. His wife was Fern Hayward, and she actually was the person to start the Potters Guild, and I was part of it at that point in time, and did us a great favor. It's another example of people coming through and contributing to the community in a good way, and what a great thing. I think we are on at least the 3rd kiln, if not the 4th, right? Probably. Yeah, the first one was, they're used to me crying, so it's not a big deal.
We are too.
The first kiln was thanks to getting a kiln building workshop grant, and that's pretty normal all over the state and with any potters group, that's one way that you can make it happen. And it's the kiln right now. Brian, you can maybe, and Shannon, you can maybe speak to the efficiency of the current kiln. It's terrific. It's the best one yet. I won't go into the features of it, but it's proven to be a much more efficient operation, and producing the way the glazes work in the kiln is just fantastic. You want to say a couple words about that?
Sure.
Yes and no?
Well, if you ask me first. It's a gas reduction kiln. I don't know the actual cubic inches of it, but it's a gas reduction kiln that was rebuilt about 4 years ago by myself and about 4 other potters. And yeah, we probably fire in the kiln, I would say 12 to 15 times, somewhere in there, 12 to 15 times a year. So it's well used. We also have 2 electric kilns that we use for bisque firings, which means, when you make raw clay and it dries to a certain consistency, you put it inside the bisque kiln, you fire it, it hardens so that you can glaze it, and then you can put it into the gas reduction kiln. So it's used. I would say the Potter's Guild is probably used, in the wintertime, maybe it has a little bit less, but, it's probably used almost every day. And I would say that at times it can be very chaotic in a smaller environment of, 8 people in there trying to make pottery and glaze and prepare to fire. So it's a well-used building. It's not studio, and it's not lacking use. So. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilman Weir.
I just want to say thank you, Brian. I thought she was going to have you speak the whole time. I was waiting for you to cry, but then that didn't happen, so thank you both.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that update. Is there anybody else from the general public that would like to speak to the council at this time on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda? Anybody online?
Thank you, Mayor Gibble. There are no public attendees on Zoom tonight.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move to item E, public hearings. Item E1, ordinance number 3357-2023, amending Kenai Municipal Code Section 23.55.045 to establish an annual tool allowance for classified employees required to furnish their own standard working tools. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Nexton.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I move to enact ordinance 3357, 2023.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance number 3357-2023? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments from council. Councilmember Nexton.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Eubank, I'd like to know how this is good for the employees and how it's good for the city, and if you give us some background.
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Nexted. So the city currently has a process with we have 3 mechanic positions in the city shop. Those individuals required to supply their own tool as part of their employment. In instances where they break or damage any of those tools, our current process is the city will replace those at the city's cost and maintain their tools for them. Any specialty tools required, especially for certain specific pieces of equipment, the city's always bought, and we own those tools. We've had a request from the mechanics for a number of years. They would like to change the way the process works, rather than us being in that replacement, rather just provide them a tool allowance that will help them as they wish to modernize their tools. They don't have to wait for things to break and replace things along the way. Chose to bring this forward at this point. I think we likely will see some turnover in that department. We have some, an employee that's really close to retirement. And this is very comparable to what is done out there by other comparable employers. Rather than replacing tools, they just do a small tool allowance. I don't believe it's going to have any budgetary impact. The department said that they can take care of this with what they appropriated this year for their tools anyways. So that's kind of the basis for the request.
Councilmember Winger.
Thank you, Mr. Eubank. So we give them the allowance and they replace this. Are these city tools, or if they leave, do those tools go with the individual?
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember. No, the tool allowance, they're still required as a condition of employment to provide a basic set of tools, and they have a detailed list of what those tools are. This tool allowance is just compensation for them to maintain those tools and modernize those tools. They will be their tools. If there are any specialty tools that are still required to be purchased for specific pieces of equipment, we will purchase those, and those will be the property of the city.
Further discussion? I'd just like to add that during my employment at DOT, we worked with the state equipment fleet in our building, and this is a standard practice within governmental organizations. I'm aware of that. So, Councilman Weir.
Thank you. I understand it being a standard practice. my husband gets an allowance with his company. Not quite that amount, so I guess it's the amount, $1,500 times 3 employees. My husband works for a billion-dollar company, private employer, not government, and it's a $500 allowance. You said we're in step. Is that the amount that the state and other entities is 1,500, or is that just the number that we feel comfortable with?
Mr. Eubank?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Winger, I believe it's comparable to what the state is also paying.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Naxted,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Baisden,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel,
Yes.
Councilmember Winger,
Yes.
Councilmember Sonard.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Ordinance 3357, 2023 is enacted.
Thank you. Next up, we have item E2, ordinance number 3358-2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the general fund to provide supplemental funding for the Parks and Recreation Utilities budget. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I move to enact ordinance 3358, 2023.
I'll second that.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance number 3353-2023? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments from council? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Baisden,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel,
Yes.
Councilmember Winger,
Yes.
Councilmember Sonard,
Yes.
Councilmember Naxted.
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Ordinance 3358, 2023 is enacted.
Next up, we have ordinance number 3359-2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the general fund and municipal roadways improvement capital fund to provide supplemental funding to the 2023 North Willow Street roadway improvements, 2023 First Avenue road repairs, and 2023 miscellaneous roadway repairs. Pleasure, council. And just so folks are online, this is, there's a time issue with this ordinance, and I believe it's related to the ordinances that we postponed. Is that correct, Mr. Eubank, from our previous meeting, the resolutions? And so this is, what we're going to do is we're going to do the introduction and the motion for enactment this evening. So with that, we need a motion for introduction. Councilmember Naxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to introduce ordinance 3359, 2023 and request unanimous consent.
I'll second that.
I second it.
Any discussion on the motion for introduction? Councilmember Weyer.
Thank you. I know unanimous consent was asked, and I will be asking to excuse myself from this, so I don't know if that would be appropriate for unanimous, if I'm going to be asked to be excused.
I think that'd be the point where we deliberate to vote on it. Is that correct?
Just making sure.
Ms. Sainer?
Thank you, and thank you. I thought that that was for the specific resolution of appropriation.
That was my understanding also.
When we award through the resolution 2023-40, I believe is the one
Okay.
that you were intending.
I just don't want to take any action on this, knowing that I will be excused for conflict, so
Okay, so
that would
that's
just be my
up to
concern.
you to rule, Mayor Gabriel.
Yes, what we do is this is, just as for introduction and for, is what we're doing right now. So there, you have no conflict there, but when we actually vote on the resolution for passage, that's when you would be appropriate to conflict out.
Just double checking since
Yep.
unanimous was requested. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Unanimous consent was requested for the motion for introduction. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next, we need a motion for second reading. Councilmember Naxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move for second reading of ordinance 3359, 2023, request unanimous consent.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, motion passes. We'll have our second reading to enact, to put on the floor for enactment, ordinance number 3359-2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the general fund and municipal roadway improvement capital fund to provide supplemental funding to the 2023 North Willow Street roadway improvements, 2023 First Avenue roadway repairs, and 2023 miscellaneous roadway repairs projects. Councilmember Askin.
I move we enact ordinance 3359-2023.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to ordinance number 3359-2023? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments from council? Vice Mayor Basin.
Thank you, Mayor. If we could get an overview from the city manager on what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Basin. So the city released for bid in May 3 road projects, the North Willow project, First Avenue project, and a miscellaneous street repair project. All three of those projects, the bids we received came in excess of the engineer's estimates and also in excess of budgeted amounts. After review by the Public Works Director, he made a recommendation that we move forward with the projects this year. He did negotiate with the low proposer on the Willow Street project to reduce that project a bit. It did not. The changes that were made would have no effect on the order of the bidders. And then also change in scope on the miscellaneous repairs and the First Street project to bring those costs down a bit. But this will provide the supplemental funding needed to award those projects for construction this summer. Like I said, after his review comparison to bids we were able to get from the borough and from the city of Soldotna on some of their projects, we definitely feel like we're paying a bit of a premium. A lot of that's likely due to the time of year we bid and such factors. But that it's unlikely that we would probably save money by tabling these and not doing the work this summer and rebidding next year. So we've chosen to request to move forward.
Vice Mayor Basin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the public, if you would, Mr. Eubanks, what are we looking at the overage on these projects? Are they pretty similar in increases, what we're looking at?
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Basin, the projects aren't real comparable in various ways. The Willow Street project is by far the largest of the projects. It needs additional $95,000, bringing that total project to $1,095,000. So it was about right around 10% was the miss on that one. First Avenue is $247,000 total project now. It required an $87,000 increase. And then the miscellaneous repairs is a $92,000 project increase for a $296,000 project. The miscellaneous repairs is actually 10 different site repairs in the city. So it's a lot of small sites, requires a lot of moving of equipment and different areas of the city. So, and then that's what I mean by they're not all that comparable in size and makeup of the projects. But looking at the analysis of them all, I think, Scott did recommend that, like I said, I don't believe we would save any money by tabling and rebidding next spring.
Further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Councilmember Sonart?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxted?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baisden?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Ordinance number 3359-2023 is enacted.
Thank you. Next up, we have resolution number 2023-44, approving a 12-month extension of time for good cause for the completion of permanent improvements for lease between the City of Kenai and SOAR International Ministries Incorporated for airport reserve lands described as Tract A-1 of the General Aviation Apron, subdivision number 1. And we'll note that there was an amendment memo presented or laid down by Councilmember Naxted. Pleasure, Council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt Resolution 2023-44.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak? Oh. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2023-44? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Councilmember Sonar, did you have a comment? Oh, I thought I heard her.
No, I was seconding.
Oh, okay, thank you. I didn't catch that. Thank you. Councilmember Nexon.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a potential amendment that's laid down there, and what I wanted to do first, actually, and probably include our city manager in this kind of a discussion about our leases. And we, you know, the leases are kind of, it's a business deal, basically. It's a shake of a hand with a little bit more than that, I suppose, and just hopes that something's going to happen in a 2-year period, which may or may not be realistic, you know, especially on a bigger development like this. And when, in this particular case, 2 years ago, I asked the applicant, well, he was here, and, you know, what their plan was. There's 2 buildings, there's a hangar, and there's another associated building that would happen later. And there was some assurances that was going to happen or begin in the 2 years. I had a similar kind of amendment back then, which I didn't move. And but I guess, you know, in the whole scheme of things, what it does is it ties up potentially a very valuable piece of property. It's probably the most valuable on the airport that is for lease. It's just south of the terminal building. It's adjacent to a ramp, and it's a taxiway and a road, 2 roads, and a parking area there. I don't mind extending the lease necessarily if there is some indication that it's actually going to happen. I have some comfort with it. It's kind of a business decision. I think on our part we need to look at, and this request for an extension, to my knowledge, just arrived, you know, a week before, 10 days before it was to expire. It would have been good to have a request to extend it with some of the cause of what's going on, what their plans are, and it doesn't seem to be included in there and at all. And so I understand that there may be some design going on and some other information that I was not completely aware of because it wasn't included in the packet. I'm not going to speak to the resolution yet, but other than what that does is it would allow the year extension, but with a 6-month check-in time, just to see if things are moving forward, and then the city manager would report back. But I don't want to get into that too deeply yet because I haven't made the motion. But I was wondering if perhaps, since the applicant isn't here, and I was certainly hoping that they would be, but if the city manager might have some additional information that would help guide us here in this particular case.
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Naxted, I can give you a rundown on what has happened to date since the lease has been executed. So the leasee has completed almost $180,000 of site improvements at their cost to the site. That includes clearing and grubbing of the site and some excavation of what unclassified material in preparation for building. I know that they are actively in design. They have a secondary request into the city to increase the lot size for the lease. They would like an additional 50 feet on the northern border of the property. That's towards the rental car parking lot there at the airport. That additional 50 foot along that whole lot line is about 17,500 square feet, additional square feet that would get added to the existing 2.83 acres. What that would do for them is they're looking at increasing the hangar size that they were planning to build by about 4,000 square feet. And they're also looking at increasing the secondary building size by approximately 5,600 square feet for, you know, an area to accommodate events and gatherings. So, you know, And I'll also point out that we just went through a similar extension or granting an extension of time with another leasee here in the not too distant past. So we have seen more movement on this one, honestly, with an actual design moving forward and this lease request, this lease amendment request. I will just state for council right now that I don't think this one is any different than the last lease extension that we did, or extension of development time. I believe we will be here a year from now doing a non-code ordinance to, if they're even moving forward with the project, to give them time to complete, because there's no way they're going to complete the construction of the initial hangar, in my opinion, in the next year, because they're still in design. I don't think they've ordered any buildings or such. So I will say I do think we should potentially examine our leasing policy on the airport, and I think it is very difficult for these lessees to enter into a lease and within a 2-year period fully design and construct a project without having to get extensions. I think that's very difficult to do unless they have the design, frankly, complete at the time they enter into the lease. So, like I said, this is very similar to the lease extension we just did with Schillings for another lease there on the airport, and that's kind of what's taken place to date. They are receiving development incentive credits for the $180,000 that they've expended. Their annual lease payments currently are about $24,000 a year on the existing lease. So they are receiving credits right now, not making payments.
Councilmember Winger?
Thank you. Mr. Eubank, you said that we just did something like this previously. We also just gave a contract extension to Triumphant Theater for their development and build. Is this, I guess this proposed amendment in this laydown with these clauses of checking in, is that something that we've been doing consistent with these other ones, or is this specifically just an amendment we're going to see with one person on the airport property?
Mr. Eubank?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Winger. That would be a new amendment, something we haven't done before. I will also point out that we're relatively new into our new leasing policies on the airport, so I'm not surprised that we're looking at potential changes along the way here, but that is a new amendment to something we have not done before.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that would be my concern, is not being consistent with lessee from lessee, especially when we're extending ones within the last couple months. I would like to see some general maybe housekeeping on the processes, just so that there is more consistency on our leasing for anybody coming forward and not just starting with one person or one entity.
Councilmember Nexon?
Yeah. Actually, Councilmember Winger, I can't disagree with that. I like consistency also. But, lease holders are all different. The properties are different. They may be airport property or other city properties, but they are different. But I think what it really speaks to is maybe some additional controls that we might need in our leases to be able to do that. And this potential amendment, it requires them to come to us in 6 months to confirm that they're moving forward. If they're not moving forward, and we just thought they were, we'll be into another building season. It'll be June 30th, and we might be in the same place and talking about the same things. And that makes me feel uncomfortable. They are asking for an extension, which is not part of the extension request is part of the code that they get to do that, but how we deal with it is strictly up to us, and any particular council can put stipulations as they see fit. And so some inconsistencies with something else we've done in the past, which may not have been the best policy for that matter, I think that we shouldn't shoot ourselves in the foot if we want to make a change.
Mr. Eubank, I do see that on page 19 of our packet, there was a letter that was submitted by SOAR International Ministries, and in the first paragraph towards the end, it says, "We ordered our first metal hangar building in the summer of 2020. It looks like we'll be fortunate if it is delivered by the fall of 2023. So it sounds like they've got their building, or at least one of their buildings, ordered. So I would presume that that would be a good faith gesture that they are moving forward. I guess I would wonder, is there a way we could verify that as far as when that would show up and actually be starting to go vertical? Vice Mayor Basin.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I guess my comment would be, I definitely want to try to teach that if we can, just because we're in a situation of two tenants, maybe kind of similar. It looks like this tenant has made some improvements, and if I'm hearing the city manager correctly, when they make those improvements, they no longer are paying a lease on it. We're giving them credit back for that, right? For that $180,000 they put in there, and they're putting money forward to it. If what the mayor said, it looks like if we could verify that they've got the structure coming. So I guess my thing is I want to make sure that we're not allowing a commercial entity to speculate and hold a piece of property. We don't want to see that happen, because I think that works against us. We want them to actually develop this property. That's why we have these leases. I know it's a difficult environment, specifically with buildings at this time. I don't have the answers, but I guess my only thing is however we do this one here, probably we may need to make some changes, but maybe we just make sure we do it probably the same way we did the last one, and then we need to work on maybe fixing this if we need to.
Further discussion on resolution number 2023-44. Councilmember Naxton.
Thank you. This is the last time I'm going to speak on this, I believe, but I don't intend to make the amendment. I think that my point's been made, and that's really what the intent was here. And I was about a 50-50 whether I was going to make it anyway, and I was hoping that the applicant would be here to provide some confidence in that they were moving forward. But if I could request that the city manager maybe by January 1st, if you could put it on your calendar, or toward the end of the year, inquire with them, find out where they're at, or if there's some updates in between you could share with us, so we know that they're on task. Request unanimous consent.
Was that a motion?
Well, I think it's a request to Terry, just to, the city manager, just to inquire. I don't want to make that a motion.
Yeah, okay. Councilman Winger.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I would just like to add on to that request if we could get some sort of follow-up on this purchase of this metal hangar that they mentioned in their letter. It says it would be delivered by fall of 2023. If we could just get maybe the square footage, because you had stated that there was going to be an possible increase to hangar size and building size. So if we can just maybe get some update on that, please. Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Councilmember Sonart?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxted?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baisden?
Yes.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Resolution 2023-44 is adopted.
Thank you. Next up, we have item E5, resolution 2023-45. Authorizing renewal of the city's property liability, workers' compensation, airport, and other ancillary policies with the Alaska Municipal League Joint Insurance Association for July 1st, 2023 through June 30, 2024. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt resolution 2023-45.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2023-45? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Mr. Eubank, could you give us a little overview of this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. So the city had a 3-year agreement with the Alaska Municipal League Joint Insurance Association to provide insurance for the city. That agreement expires June 30th of this year, 2023. So in preparation for a new contract, we worked with the city's broker, which is Hub International, to solicit quotes from the 2 competing municipal pools in Alaska, AMLJIA and Alaska Public Entity Insurance. The city's had both for our coverage. I can tell you what we're seeing right now in the insurance market is what they call a hard market, where the supply of insurance is diminishing. And so with lack of supply, it means an increase in cost. And what has also changed for us is this contract is a single-year contract. It's not a multi-year, 3-year agreement, because they're no longer offering 3-year agreements, because they don't feel like they can honor the previous 3-year agreement. We committed to coverage with them for 3 years. They committed to not increasing our coverage costs by more than 10% annually. They don't feel like they're able to meet those, live up to their end of the bargain right now. We are seeing an increase in cost. The competing cost from APEI was about $100,000 more than this quote. So AMLJIA is providing the least expensive, and we do believe they're comparable in quality coverage. So we're recommending approval of a 1-year agreement with AMLJIA for this insurance, and we'll be repeating this process next year.
Thank you for that, Mr. Eubank. Further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll. Was there unanimous? I didn't hear it.
I'll ask for unanimous.
Okay, very good. Unanimous consent was requested.
second.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2023-44 is adopted. That brings us to resolution number 2023-46, authorizing a contract award to supply operational chemicals for the city's water treatment and wastewater treatment facilities. Pleasure, Council. Councilmember Naxted.
Move to adopt Resolution 2023-46, request unanimous consent.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2023-46? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there an objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2023-46 is adopted. Next up, we have resolution number 2023-47, authorizing a contract award for streetlight repairs and maintenance with utility locate services. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Naxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt Resolution 2023-47 and request unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public who'd like to speak to resolution number 2023-47? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2023
Just wanted to make a comment on it.
oh, sorry.
Just a little bit of an overview from city manager, if you don't mind, the scope of this work, kind of what areas maybe we're looking at.
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Winger. The bulk of the services that will be performed under the contract, honestly, are utility locates. So when somebody prepares to dig on their property, they're encouraged to call the Alaska Dig Line, which notifies all utilities. And the utilities go out and mark their infrastructure that's on that property, so that when they're digging, they know where not to dig. So that's a bulk of the services. Other than that, it will be for streetlight repairs that we identify. So the department has to go out and identify the needed repairs. We give them a list, and they go out and effect those repairs throughout the year and at various times. It's my hope that, getting this contract in place now, that we can get a jump on some of these repairs, some that we already currently know about that need to be done, and some other ones that'll be out there. But we'll repeat that process again this fall as it starts to get dark again, and we can see more of the streetlight activity. So, but that's the services that are under the scope.
Thank you. I know I've addressed the streetlights for about a year and a half now. We have banks of streetlights out here. They're on all day long, all year long, which gets to be a hefty cost to the people. I know I've heard from a commissioner, Bernard, actually, about lights in his neighborhood over there by the armory, of how they don't work or not working correctly. So I know this is something that I've heard from quite a few constituents as well as even commissioners needing to be addressed. So I really hope Kachemak can get that knocked out before the snow hits.
Further comments? Unanimous consent was requested. Is there an objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2023-47 is adopted. Let's take a 10-minute at ease here. Back on the record. Council Ron, item G1, unfinished business, resolution number 2023-40, authorizing a construction agreement and correspondence purchase order for the 2023 North Willow Street roadway improvement project. And there's a note that this was postponed at the June 7th meeting to this meeting. Councilmember Nexon.
We moved to adopt it? Okay.
There was a motion to adopt.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I was thinking we had not, so appreciate that. I move to substitute resolution, I move to replace resolution 2023-40 with substitute resolution 2023-40. Request unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Point of order.
No, she
Yeah, yeah, no,
I think she can declare it now.
okay.
Sorry.
Councilmember Winger.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I would like to declare a conflict of interest regarding to this substitute resolution. My husband is employed by Kinnick Construction, who this would be awarded to. And awarding of this contract to Kinnick would have a significant financial impact, possibility to our family's personal finance. And for purposes of public perception, I think it'd be best that I abstain from voting on this resolution.
And I will rule that you will be conflicted for voting, have a conflict of interest to vote on this, so you'll be excused from voting. So we've got a motion to adopt on the floor, and I'll reopen for public comment. Is there anybody else, is there anybody from the general public like to speak to substitute resolution number 2023-40?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. There are no public attendees on Zoom.
Okay, see nobody online or in chambers. We'll bring it back to council. Comments, deliberation from council. Councilmember Nexon.
Just one, fortunately on this one, we do have two bidders, and the bid amounts are very comparable, indicating that they looked at the project very similarly, and that the bids are not balanced or something like that. That would be a good indication, so I feel pretty comfortable with that.
Further discussion?
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? See none, substitute ordinance, or substitute resolution rather, number 2023-40 is adopted. That brings us to item G2, resolution number 2023-41, authorizing a construction agreement and corresponding purchase order for the 2023 First Avenue roadway repairs project. And there's note that this was postponed at the June 7th meeting to this meeting. And with that, I will reopen for public comment. Is there anybody from the general public, or let's start, let's do the substitute first, I guess. Councilmember Nexon.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to replace resolution 2023-41 with substitute resolution 2023-41 and request unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Winger.
Thank you. Maybe Mr. Eubank could just...
We're just voting on the motion to make it a substitute.
Okay, thank you.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing now we have substitute resolution number 2023-41 before us. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2023-41? Seeing none online or in chambers, we'll bring it back to council. Councilmember Winger.
Thank you. Maybe Mr. Eubank can kind of give us an overview on, I guess my two questions would be why this road and what is the process for selecting what roads get repaired based off of needs? I could think of a lot other roads in worse shape that would need repair over this one.
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little, I can't say for certain, Councilmember Winger, if this was one of the projects. The basis for a lot of the road projects that are being selected is a 2011 maybe road study that the city did that identified road conditions and asphalt conditions on various roads throughout the city. That is the basis for a lot of the projects that we're doing. You know, this project is one that has a lot of settling along, you know, the shoulders of the road, on things like that. So I'm not sure if this was one that the street department identified because of these failures, these road failures there. But it was just one of the projects that was identified as needing being done.
Thank you. Just as a full disclosure, this is in my neighborhood. I live 4 blocks down from this, something I travel. I really am trying to wrap my head around why this road would be a priority. And if we're basing it off of a 2011 road study, I'd be really interested in getting a copy of that, just to see what other roads were reported in that, because I think of at least 4 of us, you know, sitting here tonight are going to be approving something off of a document we've never seen. So I would just like to maybe get a copy of that and for the future. Thank you.
Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you. I don't believe we're, I mean, it's an opportunity, I suppose, but we're really not approving tonight what projects that we're going to be building and all that. This is whether or not to award the contract for the work. I think that the other part has already, you know, come through. I would presume, Mr. Eubank, that was this on our capital list, project list, to your recollection? Just out of curiosity, since it was brought up, but you know, I'm just reviewing what the whether or not we want to contract it.
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Naxted. I'm not sure which year in the city's capital plan these would have shown, but you know, there obviously has been prior legislation that authorized funding for the projects to get to the design phase and get to this point. So I'm not exactly sure at which capital plan these would have been in, but I would assume that they were in one of the city's capital plans in the past.
Yeah, so to be clear, then you guys, administration didn't just make it up and decide to do this and designed it, and it was a council decision at some point through a capital project plan.
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Naxted. I would say that the administration probably identified the road for a project and brought legislation before council for approval to start the projects. But I would say that likely the determination of this road was made at the administration, or recommendation from the administration to start.
Councilmember Winger.
Thank you. I very much understand that we're awarding a contract for this, and I'm just trying to understand what is the process, and you referred to a document. So I appreciate Mr. Naxted's concern, and I think this would be a very appropriate time to ask for a copy of that document without being gaslighted. Thank you.
And I will just note that our Public Works Director is not here this evening, which is, I think, a little bit of a disadvantage, which probably have a little bit more background on sort of the history behind these locations and areas. So, to be fair to Mr. Eubank. Further discussion on resolution number, or substitute resolution number 2023-41.
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, substitute resolution number 2023-41 is adopted. Next up, we have resolution number 2023-42, authorizing a construction agreement and corresponding purchase order for the 2023 miscellaneous roadway repairs project. There's a note here, this was postponed at the June 7th, 2023 meeting to this meeting, and there is a recommended substitute. Councilmember Naxton.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to substitute resolution 2023-42 with substitute resolution number 2023-42, request unanimous consent.
A second.
Is there anybody from the general public who'd like to speak to substitute resolution number 2023-42? Seeing none online or in chambers, we'll bring it back to council. Comments from council?
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, substitute resolution number 2023-42 is adopted. That brings us to commission committee reports. First up, Council on Aging.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. There was no Council on Aging meeting within the past 2 weeks.
Thank you, Councilmember Solar. Airport Commission?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. The June 8th meeting was canceled, and we have another meeting on July 13th.
Thank you. Harbor Commission? That'd be Mr. Dothett, who is not here this evening. I do not believe they had a meeting, did they? They did not have a meeting. Next up, Parks and Recreation Commission.
No report on Parks and Rec. Their next meeting is in August.
Thank you. Next up, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you. I'd like to yield to Councilmember Nackstead, who sit in for me. I was not able to attend.
Councilmember Nexton.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning had a meeting on June 14th. They had Will Jerrig was here as unscheduled public comments. I'll just mention because I thought he had some interesting things to talk about. He said that he was working on his property along bridge access along the Kenai River. He would be putting in boulders, rocks to help hold that back. He has a development plan there. And he's doing what he's doing in conjunction with the brewery that's planning on starting work. And they'll be taking out stumps out of their property, and he'll be getting those. They're going to be trading back and forth. So it's kind of they're kind of sharing a little bit. But it was all good news, things moving forward down there. Planning and Zoning Business, however, moving on, they did review a plat and recommended approval. It was simple. It was a 4 parcel lot. One lot being divided into 4 parcels, 0.3 acres each, kind of near the intersection of Walker and Lawton on Lawton. All of these lots will have city water and sewer. 2 of them are kind of flag lots. It's a rectangle. So there'll be some development going on down there. They also approved a conditional use permit for lodging on Stellar Drive. This applicant had been doing it in this residence for some time and was talking to our planner about some other aspects of it, not realizing that a permit was required. And that was approved. And I have a note here that they have a work session on June 28th. I don't remember what that's about. You might want to double check on that. That's coming up pretty soon. Is that correct? Okay. Their next meeting, well, that's June 28th.
Thank you. Yeah, I did notice there was some equipment on bridge access, an excavator and a dozer doing some work there on Mr. Jerrick's property, so that's a good thing to see. Next up, Beautification Committee.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Beautification Committee did not meet and will not meet again until September 12th.
Thank you. Under report of the mayor, I do have a few things here. So on June 9th, I did attend the employee appreciation dinner activities over at the city shop. And kudos to the organizing committee for that. They did an excellent job. It was very well attended, and it's great to see all the employees there having a good time. And what I really enjoyed seeing was all the kiddos there. There was a bunch of kids from the families of our employees, which was they had the little activities set up for the kids, which was really nice to see. I see them incorporated. Maybe some of them one day when they look at all that equipment that was parked out there might want to go to work for the city Kenai maintenance shop or streets department, either one. I was not able to attend the air fair the next day, unfortunately. I had a prior commitment. I hated to miss that one. I haven't missed that one in a while. No, we missed it because of COVID, but prior to that, that's always a fun event. On June 15th, I did attend the AGDC quarterly meeting that was held down here at the Kenai Visitor Center, and President Richards gave a pretty in-depth overview of where that project stands and where they're at as far as their critical path goes, permitting, and those sorts of things. I was able to carve out a little bit of time to speak with him after the meeting, and just was wondering about the this project moving forward with the current, national administration, and he seemed hopeful that there's that this will be continuing to move forward. So obviously, we'll want to see some input and continued outreach from AGDC as they go through these processes, because this is a project that will transform the city of Kenai. On June 16th, I attended the Boys and Girls Club golf tournament. So the city of Kenai was able to put together a team to enter into that, and Ms. Sainer was on our team, and we had a couple of young, one of our employees from our utility workers from the sewer and water department was with us, Jason Wick, who I can tell you can crush the ball. He's a pretty good golfer, but a fun kid. And AJ Hall, who's the son of one of our long-term Parks and Rec members. So I had a great time and really enjoyed the event. The weather was a little bit sketchy, but still had a great time. And then on Tuesday, I attended the tribal court reopened. They had a renovation to their tribal court building next to the Denina Center, and they had a grand reopening for that new building, which was a very interesting event, and listening to the process they go through with the folks that go through that program, and some of the things they do, specifically directed at the youth in the Native community, is pretty outstanding, and it's nice to hear the success stories and the amount of resources that they are putting in to those folks. And then lastly, I just wanted to close on the King of the Kenai Food Drive, which will be kicking off starting our food collection on June 27th, June 26th. And we'll be going through, probably if you've listened to Kiss Run, you've heard the advertisements on there. We're out there seeking sponsorships, and we'll have we'll have food collection at the Carl's Jr. Area in front of Safeway starting June 26th for food donation drop-offs. And then also for the 4th, oops, sorry, did I mistake?
Can I clarify?
Yeah.
So the week of June 26th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., drops can be made at the food bank. The drops in the city of Kenai will be on July 2nd, 1 to 5 in the Carl's Jr. parking lot. And then we'll have one more opportunity from 1 to 3 after the 4th of July parade.
Yep, 1 to 3 at the 4th of July. So if you guys can spread the word, this is a competition with Soldotna. So we want to make sure that we are out there putting our best foot forward. So after the 4th of July parade, we'll be collecting cans at the 4th of July event on the Green Strip, and then they'll take them over to the food bank, do a grand total weigh-in for each city, add in their sponsorships, and the winning mayor gets to throw out the first pitch or at the Oilers game that evening. So it should be interesting. So stay tuned. And with that concludes my report, and I'll move to administration reports. First up, City Manager, Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. With July rapidly approaching, the city's in full swing preparing for the PU fishery. We have a number of meetings coming up with city staff to cover last-minute details, and we'll have our all-hands meeting, which includes all summer hires for the fishery just before the fishery starts. I'll give you an update on bluff erosion. So the city has approved the draft PPA agreement with the Corps, and we've also provided a financial certification. I do think we're in a bit of a delay right now. As I reported before, Colonel De La Rosa is transitioning out of his command, and we will have a new commander. It will be Colonel Jeffrey Palazzini. Actually have a meeting scheduled with the colonel. He's coming down for a visit on July 11th. The latest update that we had was likely to sign the PPA in August or early September, which would allow us to start advertising the project. Bids are around October, November, still slated for construction in the year 24 and 25. The financial certification that the city did provide is based upon a $41.6 million project. I can tell you that includes roughly a $32 million project with about $1.25 million in estimated escalation from the time of the cost estimate to the time of bidding. and also about $6,950,000 in contingency. That's how you get up to the $41.6 million. That's about a 21% contingency on the whole project, so that's a pretty healthy contingency at this point. The city's cost share that we certified we have available funding for was $4,160,400. And Acting Finance Director Metcalf signed that certification. So at this point, we've done everything we can, trying to keep that process moving forward. It is a bit of a concern. Our cost share at 10% is predicated on the city being classified as a disadvantaged community. That designation is predicated on us having a 1% for a 2-year average, our unemployment rate being 1% higher than the national average. We do have a little, last I saw on the update on that calculation is continually updated until the PPA is signed. So that's the point that it freezes in time. And I would like to see it get signed. We still had a little bit of room. We were not real close to 1% through January of 2023, but I certainly will feel much better once that PPA is signed and we lock in, because it's the difference between, you know, a $4 million match and, you know, 15 million. So it's significant. Report on relationships here with the Knightsies. I too was invited and to attend the tribal court reopening. It was very interesting. I was honored to attend that. I did learn there that Peter Avon, the tribe's executive director, will be leaving the tribe. Sad to report that. He's got, but I do have a meeting scheduled on Monday to meet with some of their folks and kind of their transition plan and meet the folks that are going to be in charge while they're recruiting for a new director, which I think is exciting because I think it really speaks to the fact that I think, you know, we started down the path of formulating a good working relationship, and I think, you know, this is proof that it's going to survive. It's not just dependent upon the people, but the tribe is truly committed to working on that relationship. So I definitely will miss working with Peter. I think he's been a great leader for the tribe and helped us start to cement this relationship. I too met with some folks from the Alaska Gas Line last Thursday and got an update on the project and kind of an overview. I appreciate them taking the time out to meet with me. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions of the city manager? Councilmember Winger.
Thank you. With the recent veto of the governor's budget, which included the $600,000 for Wildwood Drive, where does that leave us in going forward with communications on resolving this ownership dispute?
Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Winger. I reached out immediately to Kenai Native Association's attorney and let him know that veto did take place. I don't think it changes anything. Maybe we're continuing to work with Kenai Native Kenai Natives to try to resolve that right-of-way issue. And I think it probably took a couple tools out of our tool chest. But we're continuing to work with them, and we're going to continue to work on that process, trying to resolve that right-of-way situation. And just to be clear, too, that right-of-way issue actually extends the entire length of Wildwood Drive, but it's also, is it Cook Inlet View Drive on the other side of the highway? It's that right-of-way all the way down, too. So it's actually that entire stretch that there's right-of-way issues with, so.
Thank you.
Further questions of the city manager? Seeing none, we'll go to the city attorney, Mr. Bloom.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, members of council. I don't have anything to report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of the city attorney? Seeing none, we'll go to the city clerk, Ms. Sainer.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So as you all saw the press release that you had a glimpse of ahead of time, the interactive cemetery map is open and public. Along with that, we redid our policy booklet and gave it all a uniform look and we're updating our applications and making a few changes internally on how we handle the cemeteries. It's a little bit early, but just a reminder that candidate filing packets and nomination petitions will be available mid-July. We are seeing increased activity with food truck vendor applications, and taxi vendors are coming due at the end of this month, so we're seeing activity there. And I was going to give you a big reminder about the food drive, but Mayor Gabriel beat me to it. So. And available for questions.
Any questions of the city clerk? Seeing none, we'll go to additional public comment. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to address the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll go to council comments. Councilmember Sonart.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I'd like to thank our clerk, Ms. Singer, for all the work that she did on the cemetery map and getting it online. I think it's going to be greatly appreciated. And I'd like to wish everybody a happy 4th of July.
Thank you. Councilmember Askin.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I too attended the employee appreciation dinner. It was really well put together, and the theme was pretty cool. Thank you, Clerk Sainer, for all the work you've done on the cemetery map. And I plan to attend the Fun Festival on Saturday night. And happy 4th of July.
Thank you. Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. First, I just want to wish everybody a happy summer solstice. If you consider this summer, I think we got a glimpse of it the other day for a day or two. Hopefully we see a little bit more of it come through for all of us. I just want to thank everybody for their hard work on the employee appreciation. I had previous Vice Mayor Jim Glendenning come as a guest. He definitely enjoyed himself. He was a little upset they would not give him an employee raffle ticket and said he still identifies as an employee with the city. I told him that's what happens when he doesn't run for office again. So I think he regretted his choices there. We had a great time with that. It was well organized. I don't know if any of you guys caught what had happened on the sideline with Ben Langham. So one of the other officers sends his kid up with the fire gun. They're doing the prop pictures, and he puts water in it, and he walks up and hoses Ben, just drenches the whole front of him, laughs, and is like, ha, 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 you peed your pants. So Ben says, oh, I got you, and picks the kid up and puts him in the police car. And that kid grabbed a hold of those bars, and he's screaming bloody murder. I think they had to calm him down for like almost 10, 15 minutes after that. And he didn't want to go in the police car. And Ben says, man, he's got a grip more than I've ever seen on anybody I've put in a squad car. So it started off the event with some good humor. Definitely enjoyed it being a family event. The airfare was great. Weather, was hit or miss. It was sunny, it poured. It was sunny, it poured. Just great to see that event come back. One thing I could say that we missed is we went for Coast Guard, and there was no Coast Guard. And that was the only thing I actually heard from other people is they wish there was a little bit more of a military component to it. But they are happy it was back and look forward to seeing it to continue to grow. Now that we've got that up and running again. Don't forget to go to your chamber event this Saturday. It'll be a good time. Samantha's doing a great job over there. I don't know if you guys paid attention in your mid-month report. 34 acres of spruce bark beetle remediation. People are out there, they're cutting it down. I think a lot of people don't even know the slash pile exists, but they're using it. 34 acres, it's just that much more fire prevention. And just want to encourage people to continue to use this. I want to wish everybody a happy 4th of July. I will be out of town for 6 days off grid with no reception. I will be doing everything I can to get back just in time for council that night. I will be up north watching the Glacier View car launching. So thank you and have a good 4th.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Basin.
Good night. Happy summer.
Councilmember Nexon.
Happy spring.
I
I guess it's summer, but it feels like spring.
Thank you. Tonight, we have no executive session nor pending items, seeing no other business before this body. We are adjourned.